This is your news bulletin from Power 102 Digital.
It is Tuesday, 4th June 2024. Good morning, Trinidad and Tobago. This is news to 6 a.m. on News Power Digital. Canadian YouTube blogger Christopher Christmasness Hughes is granted $100,000 bail when he appeared before Master Margaret Sukraj Goswami yesterday, Monday. Hughes is charged with publishing a seditious publication on May 29th. Reports say as part of his bail, he will have his passport surrendered to the court and remain in this country. In the alternative, Hughes was allowed to pay the courts $10,000, which will be returned to him regardless of the outcome of the case. Additionally, once released, Hughes is required to stay at the home of his former attorney, Kristen J. Williams, in West Trinidad for the next few days. Williams yesterday withdrew himself from representing Hughes, giving way to Ananam Logan, senior counsel. However, Williams said he's willing to be surety to Hughes to have him reside at his residence until the next hearing on Thursday morning. He was represented by Ananam Logan, senior counsel. The probe into the circumstances surrounding the understatement of $2.6 billion in revenue for financial year 2023 can now proceed. The High Court yesterday dismissed the judicial review application brought by Auditor General Jaiwanti Ramdas, who had petitioned the courts to declare the investigative team appointed by Finance Minister Colin Imber as unlawful. Ramdas's legal team intends to appeal. Ramdas filed for the application for leave to apply for judicial review challenging the appointment of the investigative team recommended by Imber and approved by the Cabinet in relation to the understatement of revenue for the financial year 2023 and related matters. She brought the action against both parties. The investigative team appointed by the minister and or the Cabinet, chaired by retired Justice David Harris, was also listed as an interested party. The matter was before Justice Westman James, who in delivering judgment yesterday said the investigation presented an opportunity to establish the facts in a serious matter, which is of significant public interest. It provides a chance for all parties to be heard and to formally document their positions and determine the best way forward. In his judgment, James said, in the matter, the minister used discretionary powers for the purposes of the recommending of an investigation. It can be agreed between parties there was a serious matter of public importance and required the investigation, and the choice fell within the discretion assigned to him by the Constitution in the performance of his duties to recommend to the Cabinet. A 20-year-old mechanic from Maracas, St. Joseph, has been released on $150,000 bail after appearing in court in relation to the kidnapping of businesswoman Anisha Hussein Singh. Kevin Pa Augustus was granted bail as he made his first court appearance before the High Court Master Sarah De Silva yesterday afternoon after being charged for the kidnapping for ransom the week before. During the hearing, De Silva set deadlines for prosecutors and Augustus's defense attorneys to file and serve documents related to the case and schedule a sufficiency hearing for March 17th next year. In his bail application, Augustus's lawyer, Alexa Romeo, requested reasonable bail for her client as she pointed out the case against him was weak based on the evidence disclosed by the police so far. Hussein Singh, 27, was abducted by two masked gunmen as she and her husband were setting up their double stall located along the eastern main road in El Dorado shortly after 6 a.m. on the 18th of May. Finance Minister Colin Imber said it's proving quite difficult to finance the purchase of free pharmaceuticals, including pharmaceuticals for the Chronic Disease Assistance Program and all of the free areas that are available in the health sector. He says to find the $500 million needed to supplement the health ministry's allocation for the rest of the fiscal year is going to prove very difficult. His comments were made at Monday's meeting of Parliament's Standing Finance Committee at the Red House in Port of Spain. Reports say Claudia Sheinbaum was elected as Mexico's first female president in a historic landslide win. Mexico's official electoral authority said preliminary results showed the 61-year-old former mayor of Mexico City winning between 58 and 60% of the vote in Sunday's election. This means she leads a party of 30% points over her main rival, businessman Zojita Galvez. Ms. Sheinbaum will replace outgoing President Andres Manuel Lopez Obrador from October 1st, 2024. And that is news to 6 a.m. right here on News Power Digital. We'll have major news coming your way at 7 a.m. Good morning.
Up to date and credible. Power 102 Digital.
Neighbors, it is 6.5 minutes after the hour of 6 o'clock on this, the 4th day of June. So good morning to you. Thank you so much for joining us on the Power Breakfast Show on Power 102 Digital. It's all about the hours this morning. We've got Paul Richard Ragoobarsingh, we got Ruben, then we got Shane, and then you've got myself, Steve Kahn. Good morning to you. 27 degrees at Piarco and at Crown Point airports. And of course, traffic-wise, we got some traffic going through Chase Village, Charlieville towards Interchange, and that's what I've got for you this morning thus far. Good morning to you, Paul. What's happening?
Good morning, Steve. Good morning, everyone.
What's going on? It's
nice and cool.
Yeah, it is. Even though it's 27 degrees, it's not does not feel like 27. It's nice and cool morning. Of course, we are in the rainy season, so the plants are going yay. Hopefully the reservoirs will be filled and we'll come out of this water schedule that the country is in. Yeah. All right, let's see who sent us hellos first thing this morning via Facebook and YouTube, and I'll check WhatsApp shortly. DJ Ray out in Delaware, Oliver Man Warren, Wendy and James, Boyd Daisy out in Davie, Ray out in West Palm Beach, Florida, Garcia in Valencia, Slick Money Grip, Marcia Rock from Orlando, Isasha out in London, Win B in Covington, Georgia, Pearl Cordes, CJ out in New York, John Cato, Sherwin Kerr, June Fletcher. Good morning to you, June. Adrian Cotto, Gloria Gray, Miss Ingrid in Tucson, Arizona, Josie Richardson, Brenda Isaac, Brent Hatshaw, Patricia DeFore, Randy Kelly, Hector, from Queens, New York, Evans David, D.L. Wayne Ramsey, David Wares, and of course, Mrs. Wares. Sending out some love to my wife who's home today due to the flu. Oh, Mrs. Wares, you get better quickly, all right? Doreen Pierre, Carol Guevara, good morning to you all. Speedy recovery, Mrs. Wares. Let's check WhatsApp quickly and see what's going on there. Whoa, look at messages. Ouch. All right, so we've got David Nelson. If you put your name next to your message, I will say hi to you. I got David Nelson. I've got Danrad, GNC Auto Security. I got Val. I have someone I don't know this number at all. CMJ. Good morning to you all. Hope you have a great day. That's on WhatsApp at 318-1021. All right? Yeah. Oops, somebody just snuck in. Jaron Joseph, morning. Thank you so much for putting your name there. Appreciate that. Excuse me for going back and forth. Yeah. So Christopher is out on bail.
Yep.
And he's staying with the guy that we interviewed yesterday. I don't know what to say about that interview. Talk about it's confusing,
Well,
but it's okay.
How do I say this kindly?
Just don't say anything.
We pay to say though.
Okay, go ahead.
He upgraded his legal representation. Well, senior counsel is an upgrade.
Yeah, and you
And
got two. You
huh?
got Pamela
Yeah.
Elder and
Right. Senior
Ram
counsel is
Logan.
an upgrade. So apparently, uh, Christon Williams withdrew himself from representing Hughes and allowed senior counsel Ananam Logan to present. My understanding is that Ananam Logan, if bail was sought, and initially was not going to get bail, but Logan put on quite a powerful presentation in the court, and bail was secured.
Yeah.
So normally, once bail, if it's $100,000 bail, excuse me, you have to present 10% of that.
Mm-hmm.
Right, so the 10%, which is at $10,000, was paid, and his passport was surrendered, and he's staying with Christon Williams at his home as he provided lodging and surety.
Yeah. Until his next appearance, which will be on Thursday. The Canadian Embassy has his passport and now will be transferred towards the courts. Yeah.
It'll be interesting to see how this case proceeds, really.
I
It'll be
think
quite
everybody's
interesting.
watching it, yeah.
It will have a lot of implications to what people are doing on YouTube and social media now,
Mm-hmm.
generally. So I know, I'm presuming, let me see, that there are going to be two sorts of defenses posited. One will be mounting a defense against the sedition charge,
Mm-hmm.
or the charge under the Sedition Act. And two will be a constitutional matter based on freedom of speech and expression and the right to do work of something akin to a journalist. And I've seen people back and forth and saying, well, he's a blogger, not a journalist. There's a murky air between that in the last couple of years. So we'll see how it goes. Minister Imber was successful in court yesterday, and by extension, the cabinet and the government.
Mm-hmm.
They can now move ahead into the probe into the circumstances surrounding the understatement of $2.6 billion in revenue for financial year 2023. Of course, that whole imbroglio exploded a couple of weeks ago when the Minister of Finance indicated in the House and then the Senate that there was a resistance by the Office of the Auditor General to accept revised documents when it was discovered that a new system provided a glitch and there was an understatement in revenue of, initially they said 3.4 billion.
Mm-hmm.
Now I'm saying it's down to 2.6 billion because I don't think they could reconcile 7 or so 100 million. Anyway, that's a whole other story. So the court, Justice Westman James, said, listen to me, they could go ahead. And I'm not surprised. When we read the terms of reference of the investigation a couple of weeks ago, none didn't, to me, seem to interfere with the independence of the Office of the Auditor General. It was about primarily what went wrong in the division. What division is that? I forget. In the Ministry of Finance. What division is that again? Anyway, I forget the division, which created the documents and presented to the Auditor General for auditing, and what went wrong and why it went wrong and how we can prevent it from going wrong again. Now, there were some, of course, subsets of what happened when they tried to present the documents to the Auditor General first, which was refused, and then some pre-action protocol was sent and they were accepted and audited.
Mm-hmm.
And then there was an allegation of backdating of the documents, which was
yes.
And the Minister Ember said, which is how do I say this diplomatically before some of the people come from in the chat, because I don't see nothing bad about when people do stupidness at all.
Mm-hmm.
Inadvertently sent the original document, which I can maintain he already made a mistake of, depending on what version you believe, 3.4 billion which went down to 2.6 billion. And then you inadvertently sent original wrong document too. Okay, so but that's the explanation given by Minister Ember. So they can the probe, which is headed by retired Justice David Harris, can now move ahead. Of course, Miss Ramdas and her team have indicated they are going to appeal the decision. More money for lawyers.
More money for lawyers.
Which came up in the parliament yesterday.
I saw that.
Where
Saddam Hussein.
Sanwan MP Saddam Hussein was asking of the Attorney General to provide the list of attorneys and the fees received in the last fiscal, since the Office of the Attorney General is asking for a supplemental allocation to cover costs. The Attorney General indicated some of it was ongoing matters and some of it was matters that they had lagging over, and some of it was matters because the state had to constantly, on many occasions, defend itself against matters brought by the opposition. So that could be the subject of our question this morning. Do you think the names of the attorneys and the sums of money they received should be made public? My view is yes. Because guess what? It's taxpayers' money.
Yes, it's taxpayers' money. We have a right to know.
And it's taxpayers' money. And whether you get 43 million, and I got a list the other day. Woo. The Attorney General didn't want to do it because he said there's a tendency when you publish names of attorneys working for the state or hired by the state who received breaches by the state to be pilloried and chastised and lambasted. Nothing to do with it. They have published Dr. Rowley's information. You understand? If they are working for the state and you're getting briefs for the state to defend the state and paying with taxpayers' money, why is it secret?
It should be.
Why should that be a secret? I just don't understand that mindset at all. In the era of transparency and accountability, there's nothing wrong with receiving briefs from the state. Absolutely nothing wrong. These are eminently qualified people.
It's your trade.
Who, in many cases, are senior counsel and doing work for the state and defending vehemently the position of the state in many cases, the cabinet of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago. And what they get is a secret. Look, why you mess me with that, eh? Because it is shoe on the other foot. Fire and brimstone. That could be the subject of our question this morning. Wendell also sent a question. I see the Minister of Finance says it's going to be quite difficult to finance the purchase of free pharmaceuticals, including the CDAP program, Chronic Disease Assistance Program, and all of the free services that are available in the health sector.
Yes, I saw that last night, actually. And I'm going,
could you imagine? The area of free healthcare may be coming to an end. Before they may quote me.
Say May again.
May be coming to an end, or maybe curtailed at some level.
And so many citizens depend on that. Huh?
To be fair, the Minister of Health is on record. We've interviewed him several times, and in the public domain, he said the cost of providing healthcare in the country is becoming more and more onerous. And the way to reverse that expenditure or load on the state is to get the population to be proactive regarding their health. And he started several programs, you understand, including the MOVE program, which he spoke about several times here, and the NCD awareness program, Know Your Numbers programs, you understand? To be fair, it was a position held by former Minister of Health, Fuad Khan also, who was very strong against the issue of obesity, although he kind of, anyway, that's another topic.
Yeah, that's right.
He used to talk about fat women, and he kind of rotund himself. So I mean, if in some ways I understand it, but then at the end of the day, this is what taxpayers' money is being collected for, and there's no right in society that has any value if you're dead. So we'll see how that goes. When you see that kind of statement is made, it should not be taken lightly. It means, because Minister Imbe is a very experienced, extremely intelligent politician who doesn't say anything that he doesn't want some sort of public discussion on. And when you say it in the Standing Finance Committee meeting in Parliament, you know it's going to receive a lot of news coverage and a lot of discussion. So it is not said just like that. It is said to say, brace. You understand? Brace. We will see how that goes.
Indeed.
And Karen, you're right. Are all these franchises that are taking up our US money? This is something Karen and Mr. Sherry spoke about and others. Which and imported food, I think is about $6 point something billion now with the food import bill. Most of which unhealthy, contributing to our health status in the country. And people have to be more proactive, to be very honest too. But there's some diseases that you can't get away from. Some are genetically predisposed to it, some are hereditary, some are happen because of the environment, the smoke we inhaling, the bad food we eating, Some of us are leading more sedentary lives. So we have to be more proactive. That statement should not be taken lightly by the Minister of Finance yesterday. It is. Don't be surprised if in a couple of months you hear, well, some CDAP drugs, the CDAP list will be reduced at some level. You understand? And because, quote unquote, we can't afford it. We'll see how that goes. That'll be a very sad day because a lot of people depend on that for their life.
Exactly.
So they can't afford the drugs. And if you can't afford the drugs, then you need the drugs. My aunt is one of them. She has a cardiovascular condition and she would just not survive.
Yeah. Diabetes, high blood pressure, all these tablets on the CDAP list. A lot of citizens.
You always should try and purchase Xarelto for your family. You'll see how expensive it is.
That is
pensioners can't afford $1,200 a month, and that's just for one drug to keep them alive, to manage their health issues. So it is going to be really tough. A 20-year-old mechanic from Maracas and Joseph, his name is Kevin Pa Augustus, was granted bail as he made his first court appearance before High Court Master Sarah De Silva yesterday afternoon, charged with kidnapping for ransom of Anisha Hussein Singh.
Yep, she's the young lady who was kidnapped at the double stand in El Dorado a few weeks back. And, of course, was released unharmed.
Thank God.
Yeah. So he's from Maracas and Joseph, and he got bail. $150,000.
The master of the court, Sarah De Silva, set a deadline for prosecutors and Augustus's defense attorneys to file and serve documents related to the case scheduled for a sufficiency hearing. Guess what? March 17th next year. Now, what is interesting about this to me, and kudos to the police for capturing this young man. Did you all see the video? You saw the video, right, Steve Khan?
Which one?
Of the kidnapping.
Yeah. I think the whole nation.
You all saw the video. We played it back right here.
Yeah, with the gray car
There
pulling
was a
up.
driver.
Yeah.
There was a gunman.
There was a lookout.
And there was a grabber.
Yeah.
At least 3 people were involved. some are also suggesting there was a white car parked in front of the establishment that looked like some sort of accomplice.
Mm-hmm.
So one person has been held. Kudos for that. There are two others. You know?
Yeah.
There are two others. At least two others, let me say. So far that we could all clearly have seen in the video. Right? Never a dull moment. But we'll see.
Never a
Maybe
dull
they're
moment.
looking for them. Or it could be, just occurred to me, that the accomplices could be dead.
Oh, yeah, remember that shootout?
Yeah. Well,
Up
they
into
never
the
said
ground.
they never said it was a shootout. The reports never said shootout.
Yeah.
You must read carefully like me. They never said a shootout. They said they pointed guns at the police. Okay? And of course, we have not heard any word yet. I'm waiting with bated breath to ask a question in the appropriate circumstances. If there's any body cam footage from that encounter, which left 4 individuals unalive, as they say on social media these days.
Unalive?
Yeah, they say so that they get around. Because if you say killed or murdered on some of the platforms, it takes you out. No pun intended. So that you can say unalived and it wouldn't take you out. Good morning, alive.
Morning,
Good
Alive.
morning. Good morning, guys. Good morning to our listeners and viewers wherever you are.
Yeah.
Richard, I was hoping you to bring breakfast for me this morning on your way to Port of Spain to your office.
No, sorry.
That's it.
I asked Paul to get it to you on his way to the office.
Oh, no. Paul owed me like 100 pizzas and 2 dozen rotis. And yeah, he doesn't pay up his bets.
I see Wendell sent a possible poll in the chat this morning.
Yeah, I saw that.
He sent about the
The health sector.
health thing, but I was also suggesting. Well, the thing when their sense says, and we're planning to end free healthcare. I don't know if he said that. The minister said that.
No,
He
and
said
then
I think when
that continue paying for healthcare services, some healthcare services, and CDAP pharmaceuticals. Right? So
well, they weren't very clear, would they? Were they very clear?
This
I don't think they were very clear.
This presumption I'm adding to what people say. I don't. My suggestion for a poll also, and I have a problem when there's suggested poll.
Yeah, well, we have another
So
poll.
should the names of attorneys who get state briefs be made public? Because there was a toing and froing in the Standing Finance Committee in Parliament yesterday between the Attorney General and Samuel Baratari MP Saddam Hussein and Dr. Munilal at some level, where they were asking if the names of attorneys who got state briefs in the last fiscal were going to be released. And the Attorney General's position was that he will release the amounts paid to individual attorneys, but he will not release their names unless they give permission for the names to be released. And I was thinking that I said that's nonsense. It's taxpayers' money. You're working for the state. There's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with that. What is the secret? Is he frozen and so?
Yeah, I don't understand. I mean, once taxpayers' money is involved, I suppose you could just be as transparent as possible. That has always been my philosophy: be transparent as possible. In fact, I am to the point that even cabinet minutes and all of those issues should be made accessible to the public, unless it touches on some
national security
industrial secret or some national security issue,
or
some negotiation issue that you need to keep under wraps for a certain, whatever. But everything else should be made public.
Because it's around the time. Because I also don't think negotiations should stay secret forever.
No, it shouldn't.
If negotiations are at a sensitive stage, I understand having a cloak over it until the negotiations are complete and successful.
Yeah.
But I think after that, it should be all public.
Yeah. So I just think things should be public as soon as possible. And should be subject to FIA if need be.
But it shouldn't even have to be Freedom of Information access.
Well, freedom of information access is how people access information that's not obviously available
Why? How
on the
much
face of it.
money attorneys at law are getting for working for the state in legitimate circumstances? You understand? And as I said before, highly qualified people is a secret. I would love to know the position of the Attorney General is that when the names are released, they are pilloried in the public domain and the names are bandied about. Well, that's part of the job. It's taxpayers' money. I mean, there's some exorbitant amounts, but that is, nobody can doubt that is what you're worth.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a
That's
professional.
not what you're worth. Man, somebody told me yesterday, an attorney, that there's a prescribed list that attorneys operate under. Senior counsel, this 5 years service, this 10 years to the bar, this 15 years. Is that not true?
Yeah.
Right?
And
And in those
okay.
categories, you are allowed to charge X and Y and Z. So, and senior counsel has, it can be up as much as 100,000 for an appearance in some matters, and there's nothing wrong with that because you're qualified.
Yeah.
So, what is this secret about who name, and when we've gotten lists of attorneys for decades in this country who receive millions of dollars, fine, no problem with that. All of a sudden is a secret because they get some more talk in public.
This often crops up as an issue from time to time.
Which is fine. It's a ridiculous
No matter
proposition.
which
Because somebody
administration
will get some more talk in public. The name gonna be a secret when you're getting millions of dollars of taxpayers' money in briefs. What? Look, ease me up. And only if they agree to the name being released. No, not in 2024. No. So back to the top story. Well, one of the top stories is that, of course, the Canadian YouTuber and blogger Christopher Christmasless Hughes is now out on bail. He's probably in one of the bedrooms of Kristen Williams, whom we interviewed yesterday, because that was one of the conditions of the bail, that he stay at the home of Kristen Williams, who withdrew his representation yesterday and turned into a bail of sorts, and bail was accessed. And Anna Logan, senior counsel, jumped in and I understand provided quite an amazing presentation to secure bail for the man. So he had to surrender his passport. I think the passport is now reposed with the Canadian embassy.
What I wondered, Paul, and this is just for me understanding, trying to work out the lines, the demarcation between diplomatic territory
and judicial territory.
And judicial and state territory. Mm-hmm. Can a court of Trinidad and Tobago order a diplomatic mission to hand over a passport? Or is it more of just a request?
There's a request and the embassy is up.
Or is it an order?
An embassy is considered sovereign ground of the state it represents, right?
Right. And passports are properties of
the country, the state.
Yeah, yes.
So there's often a contention that you see that place on Mannings Street there, that is US soil, in parentheses, right?
It is.
So Trinidad and Tobago,
I was a little
can't go in there and take nothing. And
I was wondering whether the court can order the Canadian High Commission to hand over the passport, or do they have to request it? I was a little puzzled in my mind.
Well, there's a diplomatic corporation established.
Yeah, any other institution, I would say yes, you have to follow the order of the court. But when it becomes diplomatic missions, I'm a little uncertain.
If it becomes contentious, the embassy will win, unless there's an international law that speaks to that. But I think there's an atmosphere of collaboration because
and cooperation
in
terms of
the best place to impose the property of the Canadian government is in the Canadian embassy.
Yeah,
and not
So
with
it's
somebody else. You understand?
yeah.
Because the
I
passport
mean,
is
you're right. It's probably just going to be a collaborative issue, and they'll probably just hand it over because it's a proceeding before the courts of Trinidad and Tobago,
yeah.
and they will probably accede to that order or
which the
request.
Canadian government that's operating as a guest of this country as an embassy will accede to.
Yeah,
It's a courtesy.
I was just looking at it from the theoretical picture. Now. Can you be ordered?
We've seen all these movies where if you're in a foreign country, we see particularly Americans, and they get into trouble and they run into the embassy, the people can't run in there behind them. You understand? And stuff like that. Remember, is it Snowden, who ran into a particular embassy and got asylum in an embassy for days or weeks or months?
Yeah. And the state machinery couldn't touch him.
And the state machinery cannot go into that embassy because that embassy is considered the sovereign ground of the country that occupies it. It's an interesting diplomatic conundrum, but I'm sure there's an atmosphere of camaraderie. And I'm not surprised at some point, because you asked the question yesterday, what is the role of the Canadian embassy in this whole situation? Because he's a Canadian citizen. And we'll see how it unfolds. He's staying by his now former attorney, Kristen Williams, who generated quite a bit of discussion yesterday with what people describe as quite a bizarre interview. I found it bizarre myself at some points.
Well, well, I shouldn't call him Christmas Bliss. So Chris Hughes is staying at him. Apparently, there was a little. This case has so many colors to it. In terms of how it plays out. You had these attorneys representing him yesterday that would have resulted in Kristen having to withdraw. Then at the point that bail was being granted and where he was going to stay, there was a Saldina who said that he can stay by him, but to stay by him, you had to have absolutely no previous convictions. And this is what came over the news last night. And when they researched him, he had certain charges from years back, 2003 or whatever it was, for possession, I think, of cocaine or something like that. But he was adamant that he was never convicted. But there became a blurry issue whether Christopher Hughes should be allowed to stay with him. At least that's how it came across over there.
Well, I understand it was a blurry issue as who was actually representing Mr. Hughes.
And that eventually that was cleared up.
And that was cleared up because Kristen withdrew himself. But and now I understand when Kristen told us yesterday, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, that he was making overtures to the Commissioner of Police and others to have conversations with the client, that there seemed some difficulty, but because, well, other attorneys were being retained. Apparently, unless that happened Monday morning. Remember, we came out of a long weekend.
Well, I suppose, remember, there'll be a lot of things happening behind the scenes, which may or may not involve the Canadian High Commission.
Well, it didn't seem
and
Kristen knew,
his family members.
It didn't seem that Kristen knew, from the information I have, that the senior counsel or counsels had been retained and were representing Mr. Hughes alongside or in addition to Kristen Williams.
Yeah.
And that seemed to provide it needed some resolution at the point yesterday in the court, which eventually was resolved. But I mean, my understanding, it was quite testy for a while. So we see how it goes. And
I saw that Attorney Martin George had a lot to say last night on television with regard to it. And basically he was very scathing in his commentary of the TTPS with regard to the entire issue. And saying, it was just, it was like almost they were looking for a scapegoat in terms of the issue of gang warfare in Trinidad and Tobago. And I'm paraphrasing him. But that's what Martin George, along those lines. Well, along those lines, he was indicating. And then there was another attorney they interviewed, I can't remember whose name it was, who's saying that, which was something we kind of touched on yesterday, Paul, the issue of the sedition law and how broad and vague it is. And because it is pretty broad, and he was saying that it really had no place having a law like that in the country, because it was just too vague.
And open to all sorts of interpretations, and in some cases, in people's opinions, abuse.
Yep.
Yeah, so we'll see how
Well,
it goes.
I would love to know where how does a court see where the freedom of speech and the freedom of press, because those two constitutional protections intersect in this case.
Yeah.
And with regard to how that affects that sedition law, and where are the lines demarcated in terms of those issues. So it's interesting legal questions that I suppose will arise, because I think Annan Ramlogan, Senior Counsel, is the one that is tackling the constitutional issues from what I read yesterday.
This is an opinion, let me stress. I think that part of this what's going on here is someone wants to make a point about bloggers and the portrayal of Trinidad and Tobago. It's an opinion, let me stress that. Because it is not the first.
Bloggers will always have opinions on any country that they visit.
Yeah, but when the interesting here, I guess, thing here is it would be interesting to see which they said the publication on May 29th, and it'd be interesting to see what was released on May 29th that was of interest to the authorities, because there's a plethora of videos online of Mr. Hughes talking to so many different people. You understand? That will be interesting. Which particular one caught the attention of the authorities and was the subject of this matter. So we'll see how that goes. All right. I'm presuming you have papers because you drove through Port of Spain.
No, I don't have papers at this point. Sorry. I have the Guardian. I don't have the other.
That's the one you get free out.
Yeah. Is anything ever free, Paul?
Nope.
The one you didn't have to pay for. Let me rephrase. All right. It's Tuesday, the 4th of June, 2024. Good morning to you. Let's go through the newspapers this morning. We start with the Express Online. Hospital hell. Of course, we spoke about that situation yesterday where 4 men were fatally shot in an incident that began in Gonzales and ended in bloodshed at the Port of Spain General Hospital. I see it is being also referred to as another mass shooting now. The Express front page is gunmen pursue injured men, kill one at accident and emergency hospital hell. Doctors in opera over lack of security. Hines condemns brazen killing of 4, and NWRHA chairman, a worrying situation. Probe goes on. Jaiwanti loses in court. Court greenlights $2.6 billion revenue probe. Canadian YouTuber granted $100,000 bail. Victim's mom puzzled he was innocent. Doctors outraged, of course, because of that hospital situation. Chris must stay, bail granted. Gunmen complete massacre at hospital, 4 die. Doctors in hospital war zone, not this time. Pensioners stabbed to death, set on fire. Well, so much for the good news. You have the Guardian. You can go ahead, Richard, please.
Yeah, I have the Guardian. They're trying to be a Guardian today. And of course, today is Tuesday, June 4th, just in case you didn't know. And of course, the main headline on the Trinidad and Tobago Guardian is CDAP under strain. Con warns it's difficult to pay for free drugs, says health sector costs rising exponentially. Government must focus on value for money. That's what he is saying. So that's the main headline by far. Judge rejects Auditor General's petition, and Canadian YouTuber fails to make $100,000 bail. What they're saying on the Guardian is Canadian vlogger Christmas List Hughes is escorted into a prison bus outside the Besson Street Police Station, Port of Spain. Yesterday, his lawyers secured $100,000 bail in his sedition matter, but he was unable to make the payment. That's, I don't know if he has since made it. I don't know. I don't know if there's any updates. Did you get any update, Paul?
Well, all other information seems to suggest that he has secured the bail.
Oh, okay. So I don't know. This is what the Guardian is saying, at least on the front pages. On the back page of the Trinidad and Tobago Guardian, Norje is how you pronounce that. Norje, am I pronouncing it right? Norje sets up South Africa win. And, well, that's the main headline, actually. South Africa's Kagiso Rabada celebrates the dismissal of Sri Lanka's Dasun Shanaka during the ICC Men's T20 World Cup cricket match at the Nassau County International Cricket Stadium in Westbury, New York yesterday. South Africa won by 6 wickets. So that's the main back page story. Over to you for the news day, Paul.
Let's start with the news. Let's go to the news day now. Superintendent Kirk, suspects in Tobago robberies arrested. Imber, 50 million for THA for oil spill. Judge Blanks Jaiwanti, way clear for investigation into Auditor General. See, now that's a misleading headline. You understand? It is a misleading headline. Murders in Golconda settlement, bamboo man gunned down. South Orpooch man 18 held with ammo and cocaine. AG, opposition argue over legal fees. Economist Marlene Arjun says more efficient tax collection needed. Shooting in Gonzales, then later at City Hospital, gun attack in Port of Spain General. NWRHA CEO on deadly shooting in Port of Spain General. Hospital can't be a prison. Shock and outrage after deadly Port of Spain General shooting. And bail for mechanic charged with kidnapping of Anisha Hussain Singh. And Energy Chamber welcomes news of OFAC license. So those are trending stories in your 3 newspapers today.
Right, so we're on to our poll this morning. Do we want to go through some of the messages? Did you take any calls this morning?
No, we didn't.
No, we didn't. Paul's fault.
You sidelined me before that.
Yeah, all right. Decide which question we're going with. Let me give you the poll from yesterday, the results, that is. So yesterday we asked you, do you think there should be more good news in the media in Trinidad and Tobago? Yep, that was our poll. And every single person said yes. 100% said yes. All right?
I think shouldn't we take 2 minutes of calls? Because
we can, yes, we should.
All right, quickly, let's grab a couple of calls. You know the numbers already. So start
2 questions typed up.
Yeah, so 222-TALK, 222-8255. North Americans, 866-525-1099.
Are we going with the health sector or are we going with the transparent?
But he's typing up something already, so I think he's decided.
I have already typed in. I have 2 typed questions that you can decide.
Just going to go with.
So I'll just go through some of the messages while we waited for calls.
Well, you could also tell us which question we should ask that, if that is, since we cannot make up our mind. You pick either the transparency, the fees for the lawyers, or we go with the drugs.
So Reina Holasi, good morning. Oliver Manmoring, good morning. Wendy and James, good morning.
Did all of
Richard. You said all of those?
Yeah, Shuma Paul, Run Yip now, Terrence Brown, Nemesis.
What's that?
I'm reading stuff that I didn't. Brenda Isaac, good morning. Mrs. R is in the house. Hope mommy had a great birthday yesterday. Chris Toussaint, Kerwin Duke, Ambrose Blah, Rena Bodu Jennings, good morning. Randy Kelly, Steph, Ewart Rajpaul, Robert Harper, Michael Robinson, good morning to you. All right, that's
so the 2 questions I've typed are: do you expect the era of free healthcare to end soon? Question 1. And 2, should the names of attorneys working for the state and their fees be made public too?
What's the first one?
Do you expect the era of free healthcare to end soon in Trinidad and Tobago?
Oh.
Based on these statements from Minister.
Yeah, let's grab this call quickly. Good morning.
Good morning, Paul.
Good morning, Mr. Patrick.
Good
morning, Mr. Patrick.
About the drug issue for the CEDA program. I find the government supposed to find that money somewhere. A lot of money, let's say 300 and something million missing somewhere. I don't know how sure that is. But a lot of money is being misused in this country under corruption and all kind of things. They have to get that money to help the people in this country. Now. Health is a very serious issue. And the kind of salary people working for this country and a pensioner only collecting 3,500. They can't afford those drugs in the drugstore. And nobody has no health insurance. So a lot of people have no health insurance. So, you understand? They need to find that money and get the drugs for the people and continue that program. All right.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Patrick. Paul, I think a better phrasing of that question with the healthcare thing would be, do you agree with the government reconsidering expenditure towards healthcare or downgrading expenditure towards healthcare? Because that's ultimately what it is, but we don't know in what form it would take. But they have mentioned CDAP, as Mr. Patrick is suggesting. They are hinting at the issue of the drugs and the expenditure in drugs.
Would you care to tell me what the question is?
So, do you agree with the government downgrading expenditure in the health sector? Keep it general, because
downgrading or reducing?
Or reducing. You could say reducing expenditure in the health sector.
All right, so 222-255, toll-free North Americans, 866-525-1099 on WhatsApp as well. All right, let's see. Anthony Miguel says yes.
But we gave the poll yet? Oh.
There it is. We have a call. Good morning. Good morning. Going once, twice, gone. All right. So give us a call. Do you agree with the government reducing healthcare expenditure in Trinidad and Tobago? Yes or no? That's our poll this morning. All right. Do you agree with it? Reducing healthcare expenditure in Trinidad and Tobago? Yes or no? Let's see. So I did Anthony Miguel. Cohen Duke says no. Josie Richardson says no. DL says no. Michael Robinson in Yokohama, Japan says no.
Was there one yes when you started?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, Anthony Miguel said yes. Okay, Michael Robinson says no. Dr. Nip says no. Slick Money Grip says no. Bobby, morning Bob, says no. Miss Bonnie West, no to poll. Madness. This is not a fat in here. This is madness. Sorry, I got carried away. Kazim Mohammed says yes. Black Pearl. Good morning to you, Black Pearl. No.
When does work fast, boy?
Who's that?
When does work fast?
I was going to say something, but no.
Well, he does. I work faster than you.
There's not a race.
Sometimes it is.
Not a race. Dan Raj says, good morning, guys. I vote no. What says you, caller?
Very good morning, gentlemen.
Good night.
The justice system
hold on. I can't.
Go ahead.
Right.
Go ahead.
Go ahead, caller. Okay, you know.
Yeah, just to be clear, is it that the government said that they're going to reduce it, or is it just that you all infer that they're going to reduce it? To answer the question. Because
Well, they're considering reducing it.
Yeah, they're considering reducing it. They said it's very expensive.
We didn't say they're going to reduce it. We said, would you agree with the government reducing healthcare? This is a consideration.
All right, yes or no?
I don't agree with them.
No.
I don't
All right.
think that's what the minister said.
Thank you. Good morning, caller.
Good night, Chris. How are you going? Any message?
Caller, good morning.
Your supporters and stuff,
Morning.
sir?
My answer is yes.
You're not back yet, are you?
Not yet, Steve. I'll be back all the way in September.
Oh, have a safe trip, brother.
And this is video of Steve.
All right.
Chris Hughes apparently being released last night,
Yes.
contrary to the Guardian.
All right, let's see. I've got New Hampshire saying no. I've got, if we could put your Junior saying no. Thank you, Junior. Morning. Anne-Marie says no. Thank you, Anne-Marie. Vincent Thomas out in Birmingham, UK says absolutely not. Let's see. Ooh. Okay. I didn't read about it. Jennings. David Wares says no, I don't agree. Richard P. Knight says yes. Ron M says no. Karen Yiptow says no.
Would you agree, Richard?
Yeah. Shuma Paul says no.
Make it clearer.
Paul should have included
Would instead of do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Brent Hackshaw says no. Lester Crigwell says no. Boy Badisi, no. Pearl Cordes, no. CJ New York says no. Miss Ingrid says no. Adrian Kutu doing a show in no. Wayne B says no. Cara Guevara says no. Hector says no. Whoa. Beefy Smith. Hey, Beefy Smith out in Goodwood, Tobago. I haven't heard from you in a long time. Where you went? No. Right. Dan Raj, I am 70 years young. No. All right, Dan Raj. All right. Would you agree with the government reducing healthcare expenditure in Trinidad and Tobago? That's our poll. Of course, I'll stay up until tomorrow morning when I'll give you the final results. Right. Whoa, look at that.
Yeah. So that's our poll this morning. Would you agree with the government reducing healthcare expenditure in Trinidad and Tobago? 222-TALK, 222-8255, North Americans, 866-525-1099. That's absolutely toll-free, North Americans. Of course, people who are streaming on from whatever platform, you can send your vote via the messaging portals located wherever you are. And of course, those of you watching on television, you can WhatsApp us at 1-868-318-1021.
They're having some serious television issues. Beauty Culture says
We're
no.
not on television this morning.
We are, but it's scrambling since yesterday. Richard Duku says no. What says you, caller?
Good morning. The television has been acting up since last week. It hasn't fixed us yet. I can hardly hear what you're saying.
Oh, okay. I'm only seeing the picture. I can't play the audio. Anderson, A.K. Matthews, no. You will kill us with insurance. That's another thing. All right. Of course, Evie is going to come in with 7 o'clock major news. Lennon Roberts says no. I have some on WhatsApp here. CMJ says, man, says no. Cascade St. Anne says no. Jim Morris says no. All right. Okay. All right. Let's get into our 7 o'clock major news. Evie is in the building, ready to read. Here we go. Your 7 o'clock news on this, the 4th day of June, starts now.
This is your news bulletin from Power 102 Digital.
Canadian YouTuber and blogger Christopher Christmasless Hughes has granted $100,000 bail. The High Court rules the probe into the circumstances surrounding the understatement of $2.6 billion in revenue for financial year 2023 can proceed. 20-year-old mechanic and Anisha Hussain Singh kidnapping case granted $100,000 bail. And doctors traumatized and shocked following shooting outside of Port of Spain General Hospital Emergency Department. Details in a moment. This is news to 7 o'clock on Power 102 Digital. I'm Avril Sintel-Bob. Good morning. Canadian YouTuber and blogger Christopher Christmasless Hughes was granted $100,000 bail when he appeared before Master Margaret Sukraj Goswami on Monday. Hughes is charged with publishing a seditious publication on May 29th. Reports say as part of his bail, he will have his passport surrendered to the court and remain in the country. In the alternative, Hughes was allowed to pay $10,000 to the court that would be returned to him regardless of the outcome of the case. Additionally, once released, Hughes is required to stay at the home of his former attorney, Kristen J. Williams, in West Trinidad for the next 2 days. Williams yesterday withdrew himself from representing Hughes, giving way to Anand Ramlogan SC. Williams said that he was still willing to be surety to Hughes and have him reside at his residence until the next hearing on Thursday morning. The probe into the circumstances surrounding the understatement of $2.6 billion in revenue for financial year 2023 can proceed. The High Court yesterday dismissed the judicial review application brought by Auditor General Jayawanti Ramdas, who had petitioned the court to declare the investigative team appointed by Finance Minister Com Imbert as unlawful. Ramdas' legal team, however, intends to appeal. Ramdas had filed an application for leave to apply for judicial review, challenging the appointment of the investigative team represented or recommended by Imbert and approved by Cabinet in relation to the understatement of revenue for the financial year 2023 and related matters. A 20-year-old mechanic from Maracas, St. Joseph, has been released on $150,000 bail after appearing in court in relation to the kidnapping of businesswoman Anisha Hussain Singh. Kevin Pa Augustus was granted bail as he made his first court appearance before High Court Master Sarah De Silva yesterday afternoon, after being charged with kidnapping for ransom last week. During the hearing, De Silva set deadlines for prosecutors and Augustus' defense attorneys to file and serve documents related to the case and scheduled a sufficiency hearing for March 17th next year. In his bail application, Augustus' lawyer Alexia Romero requested reasonable bail for her client as she pointed out that the case against him was weak based on the evidence disclosed by the police thus far. 27-year-old Hossain Singh was abducted by two masked gunmen as she and her husband were setting up their double store located along the Eastern Main Road in El Dorado shortly before 6 a.m. on May 18th. Her husband rushed to her assistance but was shot in his face as the men bundled his wife into a Nissan B15. The vehicle was found abandoned in Maracas, St. Joseph. Doctors at the Port of Spain General Hospital are shocked and traumatized by the shootings and murders which occurred outside of the emergency department on Sunday. The Northwest Doctors Association said the greatest hurt in the aftermath is that the colleagues who work in the emergency department still have no official communication from the administration of the Northwest Regional Health Authority. They say no security action plan of what to do in such an emergency has ever been officially presented to staff, nor have they practiced safety drills. They say they continue working under the consistent affirmation that doctors cannot strike or take industrial action. As such, juniors work in fear that if they speak out, their jobs will be at risk. Meanwhile, President of the National Nursing Association of Trinidad and Tobago, Registered Nurses Association, Eddie Stewart, is calling for proposals put forward in the past following an incident of this kind to be revisited and applied accordingly as soon as possible. Stewart claimed that this is not the first time persons came into a public medical institution to carry out an activity of this kind. He said since that incident some years ago, recommendations aimed at improving protection for medical personnel who carry out their duties in areas deemed high risk were put forward. In an interview on Monday, the head of the Registered Nurses Association reiterated some of the proposals which were put forward at that time and the need for them to be revisited and appropriate action taken.
Following that incident, the association called for limited access onto the wards, a police contingent stationed in that facility because it's extremely high risk. And we also called for health insurance, life insurance, and also a hazard allowance to be paid to nursing personnel working in these high risk areas. Sadly, every single one of our recommendations went unheeded, with the exception that there was temporary police presence. Unfortunately, after about a month or two, that police presence was removed.
You are listening to news on Power 102 Digital to 7 o'clock. Minister of Finance Colm Imbert reveals it is proving quite difficult to finance the purchase of free pharmaceuticals, including in the Chronic Disease Assistance Program and all the other free services that are available in the health sector. He says to find the $500 million needed to supplement the Health Ministry's allocation for the rest of the fiscal year is going to prove to be very difficult. His comments were made at Monday's meeting of Parliament's Standing Finance Committee at the Red House in Port of Spain. Well, finally, here's weather news for the period today till midnight. Trinidad and Tobago, partly cloudy at times with a few isolated light to moderate showers, especially near hilly areas. There's a low chance some of these showers could become heavy and or thundery, especially during the afternoon period. Nighttime, mostly fair conditions interrupted at times by partly cloudy intervals, accompanied by lingering isolated showers. Conditions would improve as the night progresses. In the event of heavy showers and or thunderstorms, expect gusty winds and street flooding. Look out for a forecast maximum temperature of 33 degrees Celsius at Piarco International Airport and 32 degrees Celsius at Crown Point in Tobago. Currently, it is 28 degrees Celsius at Piarco and 27 at Crown Point. Recapping your headlines to 7 o'clock, Canadian YouTuber and blogger Christopher Christmasless Hughes is granted $1,000 bail. The High Court rules the probe into the circumstances surrounding the understatement of $2.6 billion in revenue for financial year 2023 can proceed. A 20-year-old mechanic in Anisha Hussain Singh's kidnapping case is granted $100,000 bail, and doctors traumatized and shocked following shooting outside of Port of Spain General Hospital Emergency Department. I'm Avril Cynthia Bab. That was news to 7 o'clock on Power 102 Digital. Look out for more news in detail at 12 noon today and an update at 8 o'clock this morning. For more details, log on to power102fm.com.
Up to date and credible. Power 102 Digital.
All right. Thank you so much, Avril, for our major news. Of course, we can join Avril again in less than an hour at 8 o'clock for our news brief. All right. Traffic wise, usual stuff. Nothing new to tell you. It is that time. San Fernando, you're lighter than usual. You know, that's going to change in a short. All right. Of course, let's get back to our morning poll. I just have June Fletcher from London saying no. Yeah. And then someone sent me a link here from BBC News, a Canadian vlogger accused of sedition in Trinidad and Tobago. Okay. Of course, coming up in a short, we are going
to just give there, Steve. Just one.
I just have June Fletcher saying no.
Okay.
Yeah. All right. And let's see. Right. Okay, so let's get the results.
All right, so we had 43 people voting on the poll in the allotted time this morning. Of the 43 people, 39 of you said no, you would not agree with the government reducing healthcare expenditure in TNT, and 4 of you said yes. So 4 people said yes, and 39 people said no. So, of course, you can continue to vote on this poll throughout the day through our programming, and we'll give you the final results tomorrow morning, which will be Wednesday and midweek, as we zoom towards the weekend of all weekends in Tobago on Saturday night, June 8th at 8:30 p.m. at Shore Park. Love is a Walk is in Tobago. I mean, the show has been having fantastic reviews in Trinidad. We're in Tobago for one night. And
it really is a good play, folks.
So you should get your tickets early at Shore Park Complex. You can get tickets there. You can get tickets at Beverly's Oasis in Lowlands, Pablo Supermarket in Roxborough, and some other outlets, which I will tell you later on this morning. But you should not miss it, Tobago.
I want to see how you're going to adapt to actually being in Tobago.
No, you have to adapt it. It's set in Tobago.
Yeah.
That's where it is.
Don't give it away. Don't give it away. Folks go see it. I've seen it, and it is actually hilarious. Yeah. All right. Of course, our guest coming up in a few would be Mr. Brian Manning and his mom. He's Manning. And they should be knocking on the door coming up shortly. And it's all about the
while we wait.
Yeah. It's all about the upcoming release of Mr. Patrick Manning's official biography. All right. Yeah, we can take a couple of calls. 222-8255, toll-free North Americans, 866-525-1099. We'll just squeeze in a couple of calls till our guest gets in. Yeah. Of course, our morning poll will stay up, and I'll give you the final results come tomorrow morning. Right?
I understand the position the government is in, but I think healthcare is something that is extremely critical in any country. Beauty culture already made a really good point. We have an aging citizenry, many of whom have a lot of comorbidities, on a fixed pension and very limited resources, and the even the consideration of reducing expenditure on healthcare implies that the cost of it may be increased, and that is a very disturbing concept in my mind. I think the thrust that the Minister of Health has started and continues to push, where people need to take more personal responsibility for their health when they can. In some cases you can't, because in many cases you don't know cancer diagnosis, for example. You have no control over that in many cases. And you're paying health surcharge, and part of the advantage of living in a country like this is that you pay taxes and you work all your life, particularly for elderly people, and you expect the state to pay or take care of you. Now, people in other countries have a totally different understanding of that, because we are unique, like many other countries, in terms of the state providing for most of the cost of health care. But in the US, for example, if you don't have healthcare insurance, you're in trouble. And in some instances in the UK too. So I think they need to have a more holistic approach to dealing with the rising cost of expenditure on healthcare and the pharmaceuticals. But to even think of not being able to afford that should not be an option. We have to look at other ways.
We do have some calls coming in. Good morning.
Yes, good morning.
Good morning.
I'd like to talk a little bit on that, but I'll do it another day. Something I want to make mention that I heard, and it have me kind of little baffled that I hear nobody say anything. I don't know if I misread it wrong or
what is it?
On Diwali, on the Indian arrival day, I heard a gentleman made a speech, and he said he talked about since they had Indians had arrived to Trinidad and whatnot. He say we own this country. He say we can go anywhere, do anything, and say anything. We deserve it. So I thought he was going to say something else after that statement. Then he mentioned again, we deserve it. I don't understand what a statement like that meant. We can go anywhere.
All right. Who said that?
We can go anywhere.
Yeah, who said that?
Pardon me?
Who said it?
A gentleman on the East Indian arrival speech when he was giving the speech for the arrival day. That is what he said, and I.
All right.
I mean, I hear no how many 1% made a statement similar. I hear nothing about that, and I don't understand what a statement and what he's trying to say.
Yeah, maybe it's a good thing we didn't hear anything about it. All right, caller, thank you. Good morning.
Hello, good morning, gentlemen.
Morning.
Yeah, I just wanted to. I find it. I don't know if it's kind of cynical of the government to tell us that healthcare is expensive. Moreover, when you didn't put an objection in terms of when there was a merger with those companies, I was basically that actually supplies the government. And what I have noticed after these companies, the merger of these three companies coming together in one, we have seen somewhat of an increase, 30 to 40% increase in terms of the medication being supplied in Trinidad and Tobago. And if you were to go up online and use the quotation and the quoting that you're getting for some of those medications, there is an increase. So you allowed a monopoly to take place, and now you're trying to throw out for your justification for this expenditure, the more money that you want to add to the budget. You are telling us that healthcare is costly, and you are trying to assuage that. I just find it interesting because you created the problem, and now you're trying to tell us, well, because we know for a fact that non-communicable disease contributes to $2 billion thereabout in terms of the chunk that is given to the health ministry. So I just kind of find it interesting, and I wanted to point out that I don't want people to forget how we reach in positions, and then people who think they're doing us a favor tells us these situations when they arise. I just, Dr. Paul, I find it was interesting that you say that the attorney who you spoke with yesterday wasn't apprised or wasn't aware that his client had an ex-attorney. I don't believe that at all. I don't want to believe that at all. I don't know, maybe just me, but I don't believe. I think he was well aware in terms of this. It could be interesting to see how this is going to play out, because I looked at a ruling that was done by, I think it's a judge, Mr. Kevin Ramcharan, and under that ruling, there is a broader perspective in terms of a journalist. He basically to sort of allude to that a journalist is not someone who is just in the print media. It must be include persons who are in social media, bloggers, influencers, and other individuals. That ruling was done somewhere in 2021 or 2022. So it's going to be very interesting to see where this matter goes with Christopher Hughes in terms of which category, because if there's a ruling, there's already a precedent set. And I looked at the ending of the ruling from Watson Duke in terms of that matter. And basically what the judge said is that the Sedition Act sort of take away the sovereignty or the freedom that persons have, which is enshrined in 4 and 5. Have a good morning. That's what I just want to share that. Have a good morning.
Thank you. Let's say good morning to Mr. Brian Manning.
Good morning, Mr. Brian Manning.
How are you?
We are good. How are you?
Good. Always a pleasure to be here with you guys.
Did I get it right? It's San Fernando East MP, right?
MP of San Fernando East, correct.
Good morning. That basketball working, boy.
I don't play as much as I used to, but
while you're shrinking. Is that the camera angle? You're shrinking.
Is the camera?
I'm working on it.
Good for you. Good morning. Thank you for joining us.
Because there's so much going on all the time. It's easy to neglect your health. So
you cannot neglect your health. You should not anyway.
Correct.
Good morning, and thank you for joining us. First of all, of course, congratulations on what is to be soon the launch of the official autobiography of your father, former Prime Minister, the late Patrick Mervyn Augustus Manning.
Yes,
I got that right?
Yes.
He was such a powerful orator. When he said some things, it's stuck in the national consciousness so much that you can't come out of your head, which is a good thing. So I'm thinking that this is really a watershed moment for you and your family.
Yes, it is. I mean, it's been many years of hard work. My mother and her team really persisted and stuck with this project, and I'm very impressed with the work that they have done, and I'm very proud of the final product. And I think it's something that people of the national, not just national community, since the word was out that this project was coming online, I mean, we've got messages from people all around the world that have been interested, especially to the Commonwealth, that are interested in reading this book. It's really about his life and his experiences in the political, foray into politics, in this country. And it's something I think a lot of people would, they would remember certain incidents, but they would also learn things that they have not seen before, heard before about his life.
Well, no matter your politics, to me, there are some people who have made such a significant contribution to the development of Trinidad and Tobago that the country has to respect, honor, and laud them. Your late father is one. The late Bas Dupin, recently passed away, is another one. What was this process like for your mother and your family? Because at the end of the day, I'm sure there would have been joyful moments, but there would have been moments of introspection and emotion. Yes. A lot of emotion tied up in this.
He should be logging in soon. And I mean, from the very beginning, at first it seemed like, the impossible mission, right? Because there was so much to pull from. Then there were so many ideas as to exactly what direction the book should go in, So that took some doing. That took several meetings. Some of them heated, to decide exactly how this book should work and exactly in what direction it should go in. But I see my mother has just logged on. Maybe she can give us a few words. Good morning. How are you?
Hi. Hello. Good morning. Are you hearing me?
Good morning,
Mrs. Manning. Indeed. Good morning.
It's good to be in a room full of men.
Good morning, Mrs. Manning. This is the second time I've seen you in 2 weeks.
Yeah, good morning.
Not these gentlemen, Mom. Not these fellows.
What? Well, what I hear in here? Oh, you see. He said we would. Mrs. Manning.
Good morning. It's great to see you. We were just asking, and thank you for being with us as well. We were just asking your son about this piece of work and what it was like for you as Mr. Manning's wife, his life partner, to engage in this project because of course, your clear relationship with him, married to him for all those years, and knowing him probably like no one else.
So that's a question for me to answer.
Yeah, what was it like?
It was a tremendous task. It took us about 8 years. It was emotional along the way, good and bad, as we gathered data. And we started off by asking those who knew him and worked closely with him to write us little notes about what the relationship was like, good or bad. And we collected almost 100 such little notes. But everybody's being very honest. We told them just be very honest, and they did. And then we compiled those, and we went to Professor Berreton, and she did a tremendous job of almost 2 years of research and gathering data from UE and any document that had his name. She looked at and she gathered information from those documents. She even went to Hansard at the Parliament and spent quite a time there going through the literature. And she compiled a fantastic book. The book is, for me, a bestseller. The people who've read the book and myself, I kept saying to myself all the time, so that's what's happened. She went into the background and she brought out all the history, the facts. She did tremendous research. And then it became very relational as she started to quote the people who sent in their little notes. She started to quote them, to basically saying, I was there when this took place. I was there when this took place. And this is how I see it from my perspective. A tremendous book.
Brian, what would surprise you most about this work?
Sorry, say that one more time.
What would surprise you most about this work? I mean, an autobiography can take so many different directions. Or biography, sorry.
Just how human my father was, he had health issues since he was a teenager, since he was a young person, and they affected him throughout his life. I mean, many of his doctors early on said that they didn't expect him to live past 30, to be honest. And they also said that he shouldn't participate in sport. He shouldn't do all sorts of things because of the heart issue that he had from his teens. My father had a heart replacement early on in his career. He had a kidney removed. He He had high blood pressure. My father had a host of I think, health issues that I think people were not aware of. But in spite of all of that, he just willed himself through it. He also lived a very healthy lifestyle. He didn't drink. He didn't even eat with salt at home to keep his blood pressure in check. He exercised regularly. So he did a lot of things to try to really help himself to manage what was a very stressful career, stressful life. But he just willed himself through all of his challenges, and I'm extremely proud of what he was able to do with what he had. As I said, many of his doctors felt early on that he would not live past 30 years old. And he did a lot, and he lived to be 65, and he achieved a lot in that time with what he had, and that I'm extremely proud of.
You know, that's interesting information that you're giving there, I suppose, which would be, I suppose there would be all sorts of revelations in the book about Mr. Manning that, you know, as citizens, we may not have been privy to. But, you know, one of the things that strikes me with Mr. Manning is that he had a very clear vision of how he saw Trinidad and Tobago and where he wanted Trinidad and Tobago to go. And that was one of the things I really admired about him, that he had a very clear vision of where
Vision
Trinidad and Tobago needed to be. And I don't know how much of his life's experiences, and maybe Mrs. Manning could probably tackle that question, how much of his life's experiences got him to the point of where he was very clear on what his vision was as a leader in taking Trinidad and Tobago forward.
Yes. That's why we called it faith and vision, because his vision was very important for him. When he got the stroke, that's what he kept talking about in his first few weeks of not being very clear. What about the development of Trinidad and Tobago, he kept asking. What about the development of Trinidad and Tobago? It was so much on his mind. And he spent his time making sure that the vision became a reality. When it is that the opposition did not agree to taking that vision to Parliament, as other countries did, their vision, Jamaica, the opposition and the government went to Parliament and voted and made it a document that was easy to follow. In Trinidad, it never happened. And when it is that did not happen, he took his vision and took it to the party, took it to the cabinet. And every note, I was there, every note that was written based on that vision. So therefore, when education brought a note, it was written on the pillars of the education, of the vision, the education part of the vision. When sport brought a note, when health brought a note. So there was a coordination and a combining of all the issues to be able to achieve that vision of developed country status by the year 2020. And as he spoke, wherever he spoke about Vision 2020. So it was a dream and a hope that by the year 2020, Trinidad would have achieved all of these things. And he lived it and he spoke about it at every turn. So yes, he had a dream, he had a vision, and he lived that vision.
Ryan, you want to answer the question?
Yeah, you also have to remember my father was an avid reader. He had an undergraduate degree in theology, and he became fluent in almost every facet of what it took in this country to make it better, because he never stopped reading. My father would go to sleep at maybe 11 p.m. every night and would be up by 4 o'clock, and he would just start reading. Well, after he said his prayers, he would just start reading, and he just read all the time. Any moment that he got, he was on a plane, a long trip, people will tell you they always see him somewhere reading documents. He read all of the policy documents, all the UN documents on social services, all of those ideas that were put forward, especially our social safety net, came from many of the multilateral agencies. He took the time to read them all the cabinet notes. So he was fluent in various, I would say, facets, whether it was healthcare, social development, finance, local government. He understood all of these areas because he never stopped educating himself on what it took to take these agencies to a level where we could achieve first world status. He was an extremely big thinker. I'm not sure where that came from. I think he developed that himself, or that was innate in him, and it's reflected in his vision. He always felt that we could compete in any regard with anybody in the world, regardless of our size.
Mrs. Manning, how much of the book focuses on family? Because I know family was very important to Patrick Manning.
Yeah, the first chapter from birth, really, it went all the way back when he was a child. It spoke about the death of his sister, which impacted him greatly because he too was in the hospital at the time she died, suffering from the same thing, and how it impacted on his life. And then it went on to until he got married, and then had his own family. But family was big for him, and his sisters were very involved in the book. He has a sister, Dr. Pamela Manning. She went through the book over and over to make sure that the details were correct, and it's multifaceted. After the family, they spoke about his early years in politics. They spoke about when he was in opposition. Spoke about Professor Barrington spent a lot of time on the 33-3 and the comeback. Spoke about that and how it impacted on him and the country, and he just went on and on until the end. At the end, it spoke about his failures, the fact that the politics, he lost the elections and how he battled again, and he lost and he battled again. A tremendous book with a lot of research done.
Now, this may not be related to the book itself, but as a spouse, you actually served in Mr. Manning's cabinet.
Yes, I did.
Minister of Education and Minister of Local Government, if I'm not mistaken. What was it like for you? I'm sure there may have been a conversation about, well, my wife is going to join my cabinet. How is that going to play out in the public domain? Was that covered in the book, and what was that like for you and for him?
Not the details, but it was like, Hazel, I'm going to put you in the cabinet, Are you crazy? I have never been, I can't. He says, I have watched how you've operated, and I know you can, and you're going to be a member. And that was all that was said. And the next thing I know, it was announced, and there I was in the cabinet. And it was a tremendous experience. As I said to Brian, it was growth, almost perpendicular growth. You had to live up to it and really work hard. It was hard work, and it was good work. And I was listening to what Brian was saying just now, and his reading helped considerably. But his experience, and Professor Barrington went through that again, his experience of about 10 years as being a junior minister. He was a parliamentary secretary and a junior minister for about that period of time. Eric Williams maybe didn't trust him to promote him very quickly. He was promoted with
he didn't come in when he was 24, right? He was an MP at 24.
Yes, he started very young, and he was promoted when George Chambers became prime minister. And one of the things he said, and it was quoted in the book, that even though he was upset that it took him that long to get to be a minister, that the worth of that journey made him really understand the public service, made friends in the public service. So when he got around the cabinet table, I saw him talking to other ministers and telling them more about their ministry than they knew. When they would say so and so, and he would say, no, this is not what's going on. This is what's going on. And it was simply because he was a minister or a parliamentary secretary or minister in the ministry of a wide range of ministries, and he knew the ministries inside out. So it was beneficial in the end. I think that is what made him a hands-on prime minister.
What were the most emotional parts of the book for you?
I think for me, it is the pain of growth, that failure, that up and down all the time, that taking of decisions, that at the end of the day, you knew who your friends were. They were all there with you when you were up. And the minute there was a loss of an election, there was a failure, there was a decision that was not, you saw them disappear. You saw us on election night alone. People disappeared. And it's a most interesting thing. And you look at people, I've learned in my years to just take people for who they are. And just, you don't expect much. You don't get angry. You don't let it hurt you so much that you diss people. People are people.
Did you see it as a betrayal? Did you see it as a betrayal?
I call it people being people. That's what I learned from people being people. And you're up, I'm with you. I may even benefit from you. When you're not up, there's a whole lot of challenges that's going to happen. I'm not going to be there for the pain. And that happened over and over and over. So that's what it is you saw more than ever.
Brian, many consider him as, go ahead.
Yeah, what I thought the painful part for me reading was his childhood stuff, his health issues, because the death of his sister when he was, I don't remember how old he was, impacted him greatly. He had an older sister, and I believe it was a rheumatic fever that they both had it, and she died and he lived. But it affected his heart, and it affected his heart. He had leaking valves for the rest of his life. But I think the death of his sister from the same thing that he had, but he survived and she didn't, affected him greatly. And it shaped a lot of the person he became. I think that is a pain that he carried for a long time.
What would you say, because you're in politics now, you've taken the road of politics yourself, your mother was a cabinet member, what would you say made Patrick Manning a successful politician? And what would you say was his biggest challenge in politics? And I'll go with Brian first, and then I'll go with Mrs. Manning after the same question. Did you hear the question, Brian?
Yeah, I think his ability to relate to people. Hello?
Yeah, go ahead. We're hearing you.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
I think his ability to relate to people it's something that is learned. That is not something that comes naturally, I think, to most people. Trinidad and Tobago is a very diverse place, and that diversity is our strength, but it also adds a level of complexity to dealing with the population and also in terms of craft policy for the people of this country. And that's something that has to be learned. We have many competing interests in Trinidad and Tobago, and he was able to successfully navigate many of these competing interests to ensure that we had national policies that benefited all, that took this whole forward in a positive direction without leaving the most vulnerable people behind. And as I've seen so far in the political realm, that's not an easy task at all. It's easy to say, to develop policies to like people say, separate the sheep from the goats, right? But we are a small country. We have to live in the same place with the very goats that you neglect and ignore. So there's no way that you can craft a policy that's sensible, that promotes and benefits this country without taking everyone into consideration. I think that's an art and a skill that he learned over the years, and it's something that I'm currently learning and developing as I go along. I think that has been that is a major challenge. As he said, Trinidad and Tobago is not an easy country to govern. If you have a policy A, somebody out there or a group of people are going to be resentful of it, and no matter what you do, there's going to be a segment of our society that is unhappy about it and try to undermine it, unfortunately. So it's an art.
Mrs. Manning, same question. What do you think made him successful?
And I would say the same answer, his love of people. And where you see it in the campaign tunes. I love you, I care for you. Those are the tunes. If you listen to the words of those campaign tunes, you get a perspective of who the man was. We care for you, we love you, we will do whatever for you. And where I saw it really very visibly was in his Vision 2020. That in the Vision 2020, the policies were policies that spoke to embracing everyone. In education, it was education from ABC to PhD. No other country does that, maybe except Cuba at that time, where they give free education from early childhood care to PhD level. And therefore, he understood that oil would not be the mainstay of the country forever, and that human development was. And if he could therefore coach, train, develop the human resources, that the country would do well. So that's what he did, and you saw it coming out. He lived his dreams. He lived the love of people, and you saw it very, very visibly.
Well, you will know. To me, he was a very charming man. I interviewed him on 2 occasions, and you're gearing up as a young broadcaster, and the Prime Minister is coming into the studio, so you have a million questions to ask him. And he would come into the studio and disarm everybody with his charm. he just had that way about him.
As a matter of fact, the sub-theme of the event is called A Sunday Evening Line with Patrick. On a Sunday evening, when the house looked good, he would say, "Hey, so let me call some people across now." And I was so, "Gosh, Patrick, it's Sunday, it's time to be quiet." He said, "No, man." And then he would pick up that phone and call as many people as he could get. And they would come across and they would eat and they would drink and they would play music until late into the wee hours of the next morning. And that's where they discuss the politics, they talk, they laugh, they get vexed with each other. But it was a kind of a melting pot with calypso in the background.
Well, it was not smooth sailing, because you mentioned earlier on some of the difficult times. Now, it would be remiss of us not to ask about if his relationship with present Prime Minister Dr. Rowley is managed in the book, because, I mean, he had some very strong words in the Parliament. I see bitterness, I see vitriol, and he had some very strong words speaking to present Prime Minister Dr. Keith Rowley. They had a very conflicted relationship down to the end. Is that tackled in the book at all?
I would say that Professor Barrington was a very great writer. She spoke about all relationships. She started off with Robinson, A&R Robinson, and the relationship there was also very, very bitter. And she was able to pull the research and write about all relationships, whether it was with Robinson, whether it was with Pandey. She spoke about the relationship with Pandey. And she just spoke of him being a politician, sometimes making good decisions, sometimes making decisions that weren't very good, but people would respond to in a negative way, and therefore how he maneuvered the relationships. Yes.
Let me put Brian on the spot. How do you think Dr. Rowley will accept this book, given their relationship, and of course you are now in Dr. Rowley's cabinet?
After that fantastic response to my mother, it's hard to follow. It tells the truth. It tells exactly how he navigated certain complex relationships inside the politics and outside. And at the end of the day, I think both my father and Dr. Rowley have a similar goal in terms of developing this country, but they were two fundamentally different people in the way they went to achieve that goal and the way they did things. And I think that's going to be reflected in this book. People are going to see exactly why that relationship was challenging.
Did Mr. Manning ever have any doubts about his leadership, or doubts and insecurities about how he was leading? And because we are all human, and sometimes, you have things like imposter syndrome and doubts that all humans go through. And I suppose, Mrs. Manning, you may have been more privy to it.
Absolutely. Sometimes he did. But, and I think that's what my father did all that reading about. He read everything, and he tried to learn everything that he possibly could, so that when he made a decision, it wasn't based on just guesswork. It was based on what he knew and what he understood. And he understood a lot of things about this country far better than most people did, because he read about all the cabinet notes, all of the multilateral reports. My father was extremely well versed in aspects of finance. I mean, I have a master's of science in finance, and he could speak on various fundamental issues in finance that I didn't think he actually understood. But you realize that he did, even though he did not have an education in finance, because he followed everything, he read everything, and he tried to learn everything. He has spent his life learning, maybe not in an academic institution, but in the role that he is, he spent hours a day reading and learning about every aspect of the country, so that when he made a decision, it was something that he could feel comfortable with, that it was a sensible decision. And I think that allayed a lot of his vulnerability and his fear in terms of making good or bad decisions.
And could I add to that? What Brian said is right, that he read a lot, but he also, Patrick, walked this country. He spoke to the man in the street. When the 32-3 come back, and it's very much in the book, was his walk right through the country. And he lined with those guys on the side of the road is like, what it is you all doing here in the middle of the day not working? And that's how programs like Musk and Hype and those programs came into place. They said, we don't have the skills. We really don't know what to do. Nobody would hire us. And that's how he put those programs in place. He walked, he listened, and he responded to what was also happening in the day-to-day lives of a lot of people who were affected. That's what CPEP is all about. CPEP is all about putting little companies together so that you could create businesses, and therefore, and that's what it is, little companies of people running their own business, keeping the country clean. So that he listened. In the office, question that he would ask frequently is, what are people saying out there? What do people say? He always would ask that question. So what they're saying? And people would tell him, and then he would respond, this seems to be an issue. Let's see how we would deal with it. So yes, he read a lot, but yes, he also listened to what the pain was that was out there and developed policies to do that. As for his leadership, and did he make mistakes? Of course he did. All leaders do. And I think that's why I do what I do now. I do the coaching of leaders, the executive room, executive suite, and you see it. One of the things we have not done in this country a lot, and we need to do, is start to document leadership. And this is the beginning of, this is what this book is all about. Document leadership and document the styles of leadership. And he had a particular style that was people-oriented, that was very much like, I keep saying, very much like the Obama style. Very articulate, very influencing by the power of the word, etc. And moving along in a particular way to representing people at all levels. And that's why when he got his stroke, it was so painful for me that tool that he have of great ability to speak just disappeared in a day. And you saw the frustration, not being able to express himself well because he lost his ability to express himself well. But you saw the fight and the comeback to be able to do that. The doctors were terribly impressed that he was able, after a period of time, to get up off his bed, to walk, and to actually start speaking again. Yeah. That's what he did.
I don't think people realize just how many odds my father had to defy to be who he became. You know, so people look at you from the outside and they don't see the challenges and the obstacles you had to overcome to achieve whatever it is you've achieved in life. I mean, he always, and to speak to what my mother just said, he always told me, you know, as an MP, your job is to be there every week in your office hours to meet with the public. And it's also why I walk on the ground in various parts of the constituency every weekend, because I made a commitment early on that I was going to meet all 30,000 constituents of San Fernando East at some point. I was not going to be a politician that you only see around election time. And then, you know, you didn't see me for 5 years, and then I come in here to ask you for my vote. You get down in the community, you meet with people, you hear what they have to say, you see the issues for yourself, and that way you can craft better policy. I know my entire life, I always believed that there should have been a separation between legislature and executive, between MPs and ministers. And for the first time in my life, in this role, I understand why there is a connection. Because the people who craft policy and legislation for the population should have to face and deal with the people of this country when they're doing it. So when you do something, you know, it's because it's an informed decision, because you have met with so many members of that you represent in your constituency. And when you do something that's not right, you should have to face the same people that you are crafting those policies for. So being in the active politics has actually changed my perspective on how things should be done in Trinidad and Tobago.
Ask Brian this question first. Did your father have any regrets that he would have voiced that are included in the book? Because I mean, as your mother said, Mrs. Manning said, their politics is up one day, down the next day, up for 3 years, down, challenges, right, left, and center, and managing challenges and managing different personalities. Are there any regrets you would have had that what people describe as a snap election that resulted in the PNM loss, etc.?
I don't think my father had regrets. I think he's a person who saw everything as a learning experience. If he called an early election, it's because he firmly believed that he had the correct information that said calling an early election was the right thing at this time. And if that goes wrong, then you learn that, okay, what I thought I knew at the time was incorrect. How do I improve in the future where I have a better understanding of what's going on the ground in the country to do better next time? So I don't think my father is a person who really used to wallow in regrets. He saw everything as a learning experience, and that's why he always continuously read and continued to grow and continued to improve as a person and politician throughout his life.
Maybe I can add to that again, and that in the times he was down, he wasn't down in depression and worrying and concern. It is in the down times in the PNM that a lot of those policies were written. Now that I have the time to do what I can do, Vision 2020 was written in that gap. A lot of the plans that the PNM, the minute they got into government, the plans, they began rolling out plans because the plans were developed when he was down. The walking of the country, collecting data, going to every constituency, talking to constituency executives with his notebook and writing up what it is that they are saying. All those things were done during the down period. So he never really wallowed in regret and said, and again, his faith guided him a lot of the time. There's a reason for it. Let me use it well. And that's what he did.
What do you think he would want to be his legacy?
His vision. This vision. And that's why we talk about the vision so much. He dreamed and his vision. He sincerely believed that Trinidad and Tobago could be a model for the rest of the world. He thought we had the talent, we had the gift. We thought we just needed to structure ourselves, understand where we were going, and just go for it. And he firmly believed that we could be an example to the rest of the world. And that was his vision.
Brian, what was his most poignant lesson to you as a father and as a politician, because you're a politician now yourself?
Yeah, I think his big thinking. My father on a small scale, and sometimes that's something I think that I have learned from him and inherited from him, because sometimes I say things and people don't understand what I'm saying, or they don't grasp the idea. But I grew up with a man who never thought small. He never thought about that we could be better than we were. He always thought that we could be the best at everything. When he introduced our natural gas policy, many people felt that it was impossible, that it could not happen, that Trinidad and Tobago could never be a producer of natural gas. We were flaring natural gas at Petrotrin and other places for many, many years. And he firmly said, we will become a gas producer. And today, natural gas we are a gas economy. Our entire economy is based not on oil, but gas. And that is mainly because we had people in the cabinet that he led at the time, and he was the driving force that decided that this country was going to become a giant in the natural gas sector. And now we have countries from all over the world, other gas producers. We have people in the region who recently discovered gas. We have countries as far as Ghana coming to Trinidad to understand what it is we did and to also implement policies in their own countries, because we had become a world leader in gas production and how to leverage the revenues from that gas production to develop a better society, whether it's to fund education, to fund healthcare, to fund other aspects of our economy. So there was nothing that ever came out of his mouth that was on a small scale, ever.
Mrs. Manning, when is the book going to be launched? Can we get the details, please, and how people can obtain the book?
Yeah. So it's going to be launched on Sunday, the 9th of June at Napa, between 5 and 7:30. That's the function. And it's going to be sold in the bookstores from about 2 weeks after. We've been getting a lot of pre-sales orders. So we are heading to people from all over the world have been asking about it. So we are heading to sell a lot of books to people. It's really a history document. Professor Burton has made it a really good history book. And that's what it is we're launching.
Well, I'm hoping it ends up in the academic institutions also.
It's worth it.
So do we. Yeah.
Closing comments. What do you want to share with the public in closing, Mrs. Manning, and then Brian Manning?
I would like, if I could just intervene slightly. I mean, obviously, Mr. Manning had a lot of appreciation for the arts, which sometimes is rare in Caribbean leaders in terms of the performing arts generally. I mean, a lot of times they will pay homage to Calypso and stuff, but under his remit, you had SAPA, you had NAPA, and of course, he started the orchestra and stuff like that, National Orchestra, and he paid a lot of attention to music and the cultivation of the art forms. What was his favorite music?
Maybe
I know whose favorite actor was, but I'm not so sure.
But let me take you to the beginning, what you said. And it is an article in the book by Mervyn Critchlow, who lived next door to him, who grew up next door to him. And Mervyn Critchlow said that he knew all the Anglican hymns because his mother played the piano every morning. That's where his music came from. His mother played the piano, so the music was part of, they learned piano music from his mother. And it was part of his growing up. When he went to Jamaica, he played the pan. He was very much involved in the steel band movement on campus in Jamaica. And so therefore it was like almost natural. The Sunday Evening Limes is back in time music, is Sel Duncan and Joey Lewis and all those guys, and so Wyatt and all those old guys that maybe some of you don't even know their names. That's the music they played. That's the music they danced to. And therefore, when in this launch that we're having on Sunday, we're going to have the National Orchestra. They're going to be there. We're hoping to get somebody playing the G-Pan. They're going to be there. And a lot of the music, the people, that Divine Echoes, people from Divine Echoes. So a lot of the music that he just loved, they have his playlists, and they're going to be playing some of that old music, back in times music, good old rhythm, that's the vibe.
Yeah.
That's him.
Back to Paul's question about your final words on this.
My final words is that his legacy for Trinidad and Tobago is really one of, you're talented, show the world your talent, develop your talent and grow. And there's hope. And I wish that we can take this book and understand that there is hope. Don't give up. Keep working at it, and let's keep moving. There is hope.
And Brian, your final words, please.
Yeah, that's beautiful. That's exactly right. And my father was so into music. I mean, we would hear Joey Lewis non-stop in the house and Latin music. I used to complain, like, please, why are you playing this all the time? It's Joey Lewis day and night, but he was into big band music, he was into Latin music. And I'll tell the public, national community, one skill that he had that I'm sure most people do not know. My father grew up with all sisters. He grew up in a house full of girls. My father is the best male moral player in the history of the world. He could play moral like no one else. And for the life of me, I could not do that bouncy ball clap thing. And he did it fluently, and it was frightening at how good he was, because he grew up competing with his sisters at different games. So I mean, that's something that anybody who knew him, he would do that trick for them, and it would blow everybody's mind. So that's one thing that insiders would know about him, but I don't think most people would know. But my father was a very happy person. He loved the arts, he loved music, and he loved serving the people of this country till his last day.
Brian Manning and Mrs. Cecil Manning, thank you both for being here. The book launch is taking place this Sunday at Napa in Port of Spain. At what time?
7:30.
5 to 7 p.m. I'm presuming invited persons only.
Yes, and especially invited guests. Please, it will be streamed online for others that are interested. So please do not descend on the venue, please. It's only because we've gotten a lot of messages from various persons. It's for specially invited guests at the venue, but you can take a look at the book launch online. The stream will be available to all.
And the book available right after the launch.
Yeah.
It'll be
The third week
soon
of
after,
June.
yes.
The third week or so.
Yeah. Congratulations on the publication.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so
Yeah.
much.
Thank you.
And thank you both for being on the program, Mrs. Manning. It's been such a long time since we've spoken. You look well. You have not aged a day since the last time I saw you.
You should retire and come live in San Fernando.
Ah, I should retire. Because down there have plenty tempo.
No,
Yeah.
no rest. Wicked.
No rest to the wicked.
Thanks a lot to you both.
Thank you so much for being with us. All the best to you.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right. Have a great day.
All right. You all have a great day and be safe.
Yeah, of course, 8 o'clock news is next. Of course, just reminding you the theater is on this weekend, Saturday at 8:30 p.m. at Shore Park in Tobago. Tobago, here we come. Tickets available at the Shore Park Complex daily, and of course at Beverly's Oasis Suites in the Lowlands, Pablo's Supermarket in Roxborough. Those are the only outlets I remember off the top of my head. Of course, get your tickets early. You can check RSRR Productions theater page for more information. Have a fantastic day. Remember to smile and laugh. It's good for your health. Have a wonderful day.
All right. See you guys.